I'm excited, and they see me excited. So they're like, wow, I can get up and start my day, get going. And at the end of the night, I still have energy. I'm not coming home at 5 o'clock and feeling like, oh my gosh, now I have to make dinner. And now I have to clean up and get my son a bath. And, I look forward to the meal shakes. I know it sounds crazy. I look forward to the meal shakes. I look forward to working out at night because I have more energy to do that, whereas before I didn't. And then I would feel guilty, and then I would be depressed because I felt guilty. And so all these things built on each other and kind of all affected one thing or another. And so I'm very, very satisfied with the results. Come in for your free consultation. It's free. They're going to let you know if they can help you or not. They're going to be real with you. They aren't going to try to pull any funny business, I guess I could say. They're just going to be real. They're awesome people. They're very knowledgeable, well-rounded. They're not here to judge you. You just kind of feel like, wow, they get it. And I'm glad that I'm somewhere that, I can start taking a step towards better health. Just go for it.
Before I came to the office, I thought I was healthy.
Let me see if I stop the share. All right. How you guys doing today? If you can give me some thumbs up, that would be great if you guys can see me. All right. It looks like we're not sharing the screen. Good. Listen, guys, we're going to get started here in a minute. Looks like everybody's jumping in. For those of you that, if you have any comments or anything, there's some little space over there next to where you can put some information in there. You hit submit. We'll either answer you while we're on the call or we'll try to answer you by email at some point. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. Josh Shields. I'm the owner here at Integrative Wellness Centers, and we're going to get a lot more about what our clinic does and how we help people. But I can tell you that this is absolutely one of my favorite times of year because it's the new year. And with the new year, we had time now to reflect on how last year went. We can ask ourselves what worked, what didn't work. We can.
It started this summer.
Sorry.
I noticed that my hair was falling out.
There we go. We can ask ourselves what worked, what didn't work. We can look to the future and say to ourselves, what do I want this year to be like compared to last year? And maybe I can make it better than it was. And that's the point of, I think, humanity is to every year continue to keep trying to improve, keep trying to get to the next level, and just continue to be the best versions of ourselves as possible. And for those of you that are here tonight, I'm excited because if you're watching this, I know that some of you need help. You've been going to your doctor, you're asking questions, you're not getting the answers that you're looking for. You're told that there's a prescription or a pill for every one of your ills. You're told that everything that you're going through is normal or you just have to deal with it. And a lot of times you might hear things like, well, it's your stress, it's your job, it's your kids, it's your life, it's your age, it's your genetics. But it doesn't help you feel any better. It doesn't help you get any better. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight is really the difference between what medical care is and what it offers and what it is that functional medicine or holistic care, like what it is that we offer here, and that there are two different things, there are two different choices that you have. They're both essential, they're both important, but we're going to outline for you how it is that we can potentially help you make 2021 your best year yet. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Like I said earlier, I'm Dr. Josh Shields. I'm the owner here at Integrative Wellness Centers. This is our team here. We have 3 doctors, including myself, as well as we have 6 other staff members that are here to help support you in your journey. And I can tell you every one of these individuals is here because they have a great and deep passion for caring for people and helping people. And that's why they've been selected. And that's why they've been a part of our team for so long now. And I guess the best thing I can tell you to do is actually just experience it. And for those of you that are on this webinar today and that are patients, you know what it's like and you know what type of care and what type of people these are. And I got to say, this is one of the most wonderful teams. And I'm very proud also to state that the way that we've been able to help so many people has allowed us to grow to being one of the largest, if not the largest, functional medicine clinic in the state of Michigan. We help thousands of patients recover and get well And not only get well, but stay well. That's really the critical part of all this, is that consistency that we're all looking for. And I feel like we've got a great team to help us do that. So the first thing that you need to understand is, what is functional medicine and why is it different? Well, functional medicine really likes to look at the body as a whole. It's always odd to me that if we have a digestive problem, we go to a gastroenterologist. If we have headaches or migraines, we go to a neurologist. If we have mental illness or anxiety issues, we go to a psychiatrist. And if we have hormone issues, we go to an endocrinologist or our OB-GYN. But really, if you think about it, these systems of the body cannot be separated. That ultimately, everything affects everything, everything matters, and everything counts. And so you can't just affect the hormonal system. I had a lady that came in today and she was complaining of migraines and headaches, and she was really wanting us to stay focused on her brain. She goes, I really want you to run the neurotransmitter testing to see what's going on with my brain. I tried to explain to her that it's not just your brain. Your brain, the neurotransmitters in your brain are produced and made in your gut. So we've got to look at your gut. We also know that if your liver is not detoxifying properly, that those toxins can overflow and get into your brain and can cause some of those headaches and migraines. And so we need to look at you as a whole and address your individual needs and wants. We can't just look at it as symptoms, because just because your head's hurting doesn't mean that your head's the problem. And I hope that makes sense to you guys, that your knee bone's connected, your hip bone's connected to your elbow bone, everything's connected, and you can't affect one system without affecting all the systems. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how these different systems overlay. With the current medical system, what we understand is that they're trained and they look at disease and illness, that they're in the business of managing disease symptoms with medications and surgeries. Those are the tools that they have in their toolkit. So the things that they look for are things like heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disease, diabetes, thyroid issues. And these are all surface layer problems. And we can address these with medications. For example, about 1 out of every 3 of you right now watching this is taking some form of cholesterol lowering medication or blood pressure medication. 1 out of 6 of you are taking some type of antipsychotic, either for anxiety, depression, for sleeplessness. There's also, we're learning now that 1 out of every 5 of you probably take some form of allergy medication or sinus medications regularly. And the truth is that in the last 30 days, that 85% of you watching this right now, in the past 30 days, have taken some form of a prescription or over-the-counter medication. So we have been really, really well trained that for every symptom, for every ill, there's a pill. And a good example of that is, if you have indigestion, what do you take? If you have headaches, what do you take? That's right. If you have depression, what do you take? I mean, you guys know these medications by name, and it's not by accident that you know about these things, because these are all things that we've been taught to do for our symptoms. And we've been taught to address those symptoms with pills. But unfortunately, that's not the case, because a lot of times we're told that it's either our age, that's why we have these symptoms, or it's our genetics, or they try to normalize it. And you guys have seen this in commercials. You hear it all the time. If your cholesterol's high and diet and exercise isn't working, then maybe it's genetic high cholesterol and you need to take cholesterol lowering medications. And I can tell you that 1 out of 3 of you watching this don't have a genetic reason for why your cholesterol is high. It's because of the food that you eat. You guys know that, and you know these things. It's a very, very small percentage of people that have high cholesterol because of their genetics, or have diabetes because of their genetics. But we'll talk about some of those things, because genetics do play a role. We don't want to ignore that, but it's simply not the case that it's our age or it's our genetics. And first off, it's not normal to have a symptom. If you have a headache, that's your body trying to tell you that something's not working right. If you're having sinus issues, that's your body trying to tell you something's not working right. If you have gut issues, it's trying to tell you that you don't have a Tums deficiency or a Prilosec deficiency, that something's wrong, something's not working. And so that's what we want to do. Now, one of the big ideas I think you need to understand about health is that 86%, this is what's coming out of the National Institute of Health, World Health Organization, and several other higher ups, as you would say, they are finding that 86% of disease is chronic and lifestyle related. That means that we're going to deal with it for our whole life, and that there's factors that are within our control that we can get well, that we can overcome these issues if it's brought to our attention of what we need to do. And that's sometimes in this society, in this era, we've all been taught that we can basically, if we eat better and we exercise, that should take care of everything that we're going to need. And that's simply not the case. The way that the world's evolved, the changes that have happened in the last 100 to 200 years is put a new stress on our bodies, and our bodies genetically haven't learned to keep up with all the changes and all the things that are happening. And so we are starting to see where more and more people are suffering and being ill and complaining of problems because our bodies just are having a hard time adapting. And that's what we hope to share with you today. Why is it that your body's having a hard time adapting, and what can we do to help? This is something important to understand, is that if you look here on the far left, and I don't know if my mouse is working right now, and I apologize because it doesn't appear that it is. But on the far left, we have healthy individuals. That's where you're born at. You're up here at the top, you're born at health. And then typically what happens, if you're not one of those rare cases of having some type of genetic issue when you're born, we all kind of start at the same level of playing ground. From there, we have different stresses that are going to affect us. Those stressors can be physical stress, emotional, environmental, and biological. If those stressors remain in place long enough, we start to experience symptoms. That's where we get into the symptomatic column here. And then if we ignore those symptoms over time, then it can lead to organ, tissue, and joint damage. Let me give you some examples of how this would work. If you have a physical injury, let's say you are playing football and you get tackled from the side, or you fall and you slip and you hurt a joint. If you don't rehab that joint properly and take the right motions and right movements to make sure it heals properly, or if the damage isn't too severe, over time, initially you're going to have a painful hip joint. It's going to be swollen, it's going to hurt, it's going to ache. But like I said, if we don't rehab it and take care of it properly, over time, that hip can actually become more and more stiff, and the joint becomes more stiff. It can lead to more arthritis. Once we name it arthritis, that's a medical term, that's a medical diagnosis, that it's osteoarthritis. Then there's a treatment, a way that we can manage it. And that treatment is taking anti-inflammatories or steroids. But ultimately, we're just treating the damage that's taken place. We didn't really address what caused it. And that's the physical injury, or the lack of rehab, or the lack of recovery, if it's possible to get that joint back to normal function. Emotionally, we know that if we're stressed, that over time, that stress can lead to heart palpitations, chest tightness, but we know that over time, if stress isn't dealt with, that it can lead to disease. We know that people that are stressed are commonly more likely to have cancer. People that go through divorce are more likely to have cancer. They're more likely to have heart disease because of the stress of those events. So those are some of the things we want to look at. We know environmentally that there's more toxins in the air, that there's more chemicals in the water that we drink. And we know for a fact, science does not refute this, that these chemicals, these toxins, are leading to cancer, or heart disease, or Alzheimer's, or dementia. But before we have the disease, these chemicals can cause fatigue, pain, hormonal issues, changes in our weight, sleep troubles. And that's what we know from science. And it's not ignoring the fact that toxins can affect our health. But I challenge you to go to your primary care doctor and say, I think toxicity has an issue with my health concerns. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. Now, you're not crazy because it's a fact. But the truth is they're not armed with the tools to help you overcome those toxicities issues. The other thing that we look at, and this is what we primarily focus on in our office, is the biological stressors. For example, we know that we can have an infection in our gut, and that infection can lead to general achiness, bloating, gas in our gut. But then we know that inflammation doesn't stay in the gut. It can go systemic. It can go to our arms and our legs and our shoulders and make us be more achy. It can affect our skin and the quality of our skin. It can cause acne. It can cause liver spots. It can cause poor health of our skin. So that's just one example of what a gut infection can do. Initially, it can lead to these symptoms. And over time, if not addressed, we know that then that can put us at a higher risk for possibly having inflammation of our colon, which then can lead to cancer or lead to polyps. And so that's what you're going to see is the medical system. It's designed to treat disease on the far right here, right after the adaptation, when your body can still adapt. It's designed to treat the disease. So therefore, if you don't have a disease or something that's life-threatening or something that needs a surgery, then there's really nothing they can do to help you. It's not their fault. It's simply the way that system and the way they've been taught is geared to help you. It's just like kind of coming to me and asking me to help you with an appendicitis, which you need to have a surgery. You need to have that removed because it can definitely cause more problems. But does that make me a bad doctor? No, it just means that's not what I do. And so I know that you guys think that doctor means help people, but doctor means you have a specialty in a certain part of an education. And that education is in the medical sciences, if you're a medical doctor, to study what medicine does. Medicine, pharmaceuticals, surgeries, and treatment and management of disease and naming and diagnosing those diseases. So please understand that there's a difference here of what you're looking to achieve. So with functional medicine, we like to ask those questions. We like to say, you know, are you emotionally stressed out? You know, do you have good relationships? Do you have things that you do that you enjoy? We like to say physically, are you getting up? Are you being active? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of yourself? Environmentally, we want to make sure that you're reducing as much exposure to these toxins and chemicals. And biologically, we want to look to see what's causing some of those issues, because I think that you guys know and believe that there are other causes to disease, that there's causes of disease. For example, you know nutritional deficiencies are going to lead to your body being weakened in a weakened state, which can affect your immune system, it can affect your hormonal system, and it can make you have symptoms. You know that. But all the time I hear, and I see it all the time, people come with their blood work and they go, oh, my doctor says my iron is just a little low. And I'm like, well, but iron carries oxygen to your brain. It carries nutrients throughout your body. So it's kind of like saying, I'm just strangling you a little bit. Do you want me to strangle you a little bit? No, of course not. So it's not okay to be low and deficient in these types of things. I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but that's kind of how I tend to do. So we want to look at, and we'll talk about that, is we want to find the cause and solve the puzzle. Because if you don't find the cause, you're going to end up treating the symptoms, and then you're going to have a customer for life. And that's really what's happening here, guys, is that big pharma, hospitals are unfortunately preying on disease. Guys, it's not a coincidence that you see these big time commercials talking about this hospital does cancer prevention or cancer treatment the best out of anybody. Come to our clinic, because that's thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars per client when they come to that clinic. That's how these big buildings get built, is from profit. And pharmaceutical companies know we don't want to cure disease, but we want to manage disease. They've even said they don't want to cure cancer. They want to make cancer into a metabolic disease, just like heart disease. We want to be able to give you a medication to treat cancer, just like heart disease, because it's a lifelong dependency. And that's what they're hoping to gain, is gain a larger and larger share of the market, of the dollars that is being spent towards, I put it in quotes, healthcare, but it's really just management disease illness. Look at what's happening in healthcare right now. This is dollar for dollar. So this takes into account the consideration that a dollar back in 1970 is the same dollar as it is today. So it takes that inflation, it calculates it out and says in 1970, the average American spent $1,700 a year on healthcare. The client, the patient spent that money on their insurance, their deductibles, their surgeries, their procedures, their drugs, everything. $1,800. What's it today? In 2017, it's almost $11,000 per person. $11,000 per person. I know I spent that for my health care just in my insurance last year, because I'm self-employed and I have to pay my own insurance premiums. And it was just over $12,000 for my premiums. Doesn't include my deductible or anything I pay. That's just for the premium to have coverage in case something catastrophic happens, because who wants a $300,000 bill? So that's why we have to have insurance. But some people are trying to use insurance for their drugs, for these common procedures, and it's getting more and more expensive. It's getting out of control. And it is actually now our third largest. It is actually a third of our economy now is healthcare. A third of our money in this country spent on healthcare. It's a real problem. Despite big spending, despite the fact that we spend more than any country in the entire world on healthcare, we rank 37th. You should Google this and look at it. You won't believe the countries that are above us on this list of people. It is amazing to think that we spend so much energy and effort, but we're not well. And so it has to ask the question, then, if medications were the answer for our health and money was the answer, then we would be hands down the healthiest country in the world, because we take more drugs than the rest of the world combined. We take more drugs than the whole entire world combined. Per this 4% of the world's population, we take more than 50% of the world's drugs. 4% of the world's population take 50% of the world's drugs. So we're over-medicated, we're overutilizing, but we're underutilizing what our role and our responsibilities are in getting healthy. So this is another big idea for you, is that the medical system is designed to diagnose, manage, and treat disease with medications and surgeries. I want you guys to think about it. You can always tell what somebody's going to do for you based on the tools that they carry. So if you look at this picture right now, what do you think this gentleman is going to want to do for you? Are they going to want to fix your car? No. That is somebody that is in construction that is going to do repairs on your home. So to ask them to fix your car isn't going to really work out. They might be able to hit it with that hammer, or might be able to take some of that tape, but realistically, that's not who you're looking for. Now, I want you to look at this slide. What is this person going to do for you? Well, it's a medical physician. They have medications, they have a scalpel, and they have a very, very advanced testing. Now, once again, we're not saying that these things aren't necessary, that they're not life-saving for some people, but what we are saying is that these things are overutilized and overperformed, and something's missing because we're not getting healthier. So what are the tools then that are on our toolkit? Like, if you come to our clinic, what's the difference between our clinic and a medical clinic? Well, we do use medical testing. We use medical testing quite a bit, but we also use holistic lab testing. And I'm going to explain that to you guys in depth today. We also use supplements, herbs, and other natural botanicals. So everything we do here is safe, it's natural, and it's very, very effective. We also use whole natural foods and customized eating plans that are specific to individuals and what their needs and what they're able to do. So if we have a vegan come to our clinic, then we have to work with that patient being a vegan. I'm not going to tell you guys to be a vegan, nor would I even recommend it. But if we have somebody that has a religious want or has a social want to be something, we're going to help cater to that. But we have to figure out what it is that's hurting them and what it is that can help them. And so we will help them understand that, because food is so powerful in our treatment plans. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to provide accountability and relationships. You know, I think it's unfortunate, but a lot of you probably don't even know your doctor's name. And if you do, the time that you do spend with your doctors these days is very limited. Half the time they're turned around at the computer, they're pushing little buttons on their computer, and they're trying to enter all their data that they have to enter. And you probably don't get more than 5 minutes face-to-face time. And that's just not how it works in our clinic. Our visits are typically at least 30 minutes long each visit. We're going to meet with people, and we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to have you journaling what you're eating, how you're feeling, what are your bowel movements, what's your energy levels, and how you're responding to our protocols that we're going to put you on. But we also develop relationships, because you can't sit in a room with somebody for 6 months and care for them every 2 weeks or once a month or every week and not develop some form of a relationship where we get to know you. We get to know who your family is, where you're from, what's your job, and we get to learn about you, because that's a part of what I believe is missing today, is the care that's supposed to go along with healthcare. And then we also do wellness coaching to increase your self-discipline and increase your consistency. We all know that we can eat good for a day or two, but if we don't eat good more often than not, and we don't get better and better at that over time, then we're just going to go back to our old ways. So we've got some things and some techniques and some tools that we teach our patients to be more consistent with their dietary changes, to take initiative and not look at it as oh, I have to do this. It's, I want to do this, and how to reframe things. And so we have all these different tools that we're going to use with our patients. We have a wellness coach, as well as our doctors are trained in wellness coaching. And we're going to work with you guys to help you develop better self-awareness and self-control, because really at the end of the day, it's what this is about. It's about self-control and self-discipline. So what do FM doctors look for? Well, we don't look for diseases. We don't look to name it. We're not going to tell you that you have fibromyalgia or you have ulcerative colitis. We're looking to see what's causing and triggering those things. Those are simply names. And so the things that we actually look for, that things that we know that are known causes to those health issues, are food. We know that it's sugars, vegetable oils, refined processed foods, basically frankenfood. We know that the foods that we're eating are making us sick. We also know that people are getting several nutritional deficiencies. And I've already mentioned that, how nutritional deficiencies are going to affect you in ways that are unimaginable. It's not just you're low in iron. That iron has 1,000 different effects in your human body. And if you don't have it, there's 1,000 different things that can happen and take place when you're missing just one nutrient. So we can't even understand how important nutritional deficiencies are to our body functioning properly. We also know that toxins, medications, and the pesticides in our environment can cause these issues. So we look at those things. We also like to look at immune issues, primarily in the gut, because the gut is so much the immune system. That's about where 80% of your immune system is found, is in your gut. And so we look for things like parasites, candida, dysbiosis, which is an overgrowth of bacteria. We look for worms, viral and bacterial infections. We look for a condition called leaky gut, which can lead to multiple food sensitivities, which can also lead to autoimmune disease. So we're going to go over that today. We're also going to go over how inflammation can cause disease and illness. And we're going to talk about hormonal imbalances. So as you can tell, we have a lot of information to cover. And let's see, that was 25 minutes into this. So I've got to get busy. So hang in there. Let's go. So I think the best place to start, though, is with a testimonial. I think you'll hear an interesting story from her. And I want you to, as she goes through her symptoms, I want you to think about all the different doctors and specialists she would have had to go to for each one of these problems. But when she comes to our clinic and we address her as a whole, I want you to see how much her life has been transformed.
Before I came to Integrative Wellness Centers, my health was a mess. I had menstrual problems. I had thyroid problems. I had problems with my ears, significant problems, things that made it so I couldn't drive because I was dizzy. I ended up getting diagnosed with Meniere's disease, which is an inner ear condition. I have had ablations, which is a menstrual trying to suppress heavy bleeding. And my thyroid medicine was being increased almost every other month for about, well, I shouldn't say every other month, probably every 3 to 6 months. It was increased for at least 2 years. And so, yeah, I was struggling, and I was trying to grasp at things and try to figure out ways to become healthy. And I felt like none of it was working, and it was very difficult. I go to my doctor, and my doctor looks at me and says, try this. And it feels like it's something he's read about and maybe it could help. Here it's, no, this works. And the diet, it's, your blood is drawn and there's other things that are proven to show why you're doing what you're doing. And it feels like there's answers. There's why I feel bad. There's how to fix it. And there's support and a means to do it. It's been under care for 9 months now. And my health now is tremendously different. I have control over my physical health. I can say I have control. I'm not dependent on the doctors. I'm not dependent on anything. I am in control of my health. I feel so much better. My thyroid has stabilized. I haven't had an increase since I started this program. My menstrual cycles are completely normal. My ears are completely under control, as to the point where I almost feel like my ears are a non-issue. My family, I don't even think realizes certain things. Like the fact that I wake up in the morning now and I go snuggle my kids because I have the energy. I can actually go to bed and wake up in the morning. That hasn't happened for 15 years where I would just wake up. My husband, I know there's just a renewed sense of energy in our entire family, because it's not just me dragging through life, it's me enjoying life. Emotionally, I can't even explain how much this means to me and to my family. I owe you so much.
Wow. I can tell you that Mary is still a patient here. It's been 7 years now, and Mary's still doing wonderful. She has referred us, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of patients, probably an exaggeration on thousands, but honestly, she's referred us so many people over the years, because here's a smart woman. She's an engineer. She knows her stuff, and she's asking for help, but nobody's able to help her. And it wasn't because they didn't want to help her. It's just they didn't have the tools to help her. And if you look at some of her symptoms and some of the things that were going on, she had an inner ear problem where she couldn't drive her car. She had a hormonal issue with her menstrual cycles. She had a thyroid problem. And here all these things were happening. But if you could have addressed each one of those symptoms individually. But that's one of the things I was trying to help that one lady explain to her today when she came to my office. It's not just a headache. You know, with Mary, it's not just a thyroid problem. It's not just your menstrual problems. It's a whole entire body problem. And this is what I love about what Mary wrote. And it's actually something I've used quite a bit and continuing to set up our practice and our core values. But, you know, if you listen to what she said, she goes, they find out what's actually causing your problems. They show you what you need to do to fix them. And they provide you with the support, accountability, and guidance to actually do it. I mean, to me, this sounds like real healthcare. And obviously the results speak for themselves. So let's continue. Another reason I'm so passionate about functional medicine is because of my dad, Sam. Sam in this picture was 59 years of age. He was an avid basketball and soccer player. He was retired from the post office. He was also been retired 1 year from the Air Force Reserves, and he'd spent his whole life looking forward to retiring. When we had our firstborn child, he flew from Washington State to Georgia to visit my son, and that was his the 3-month visit, and he had planned a second trip to come back out and see us, and unfortunately, he never made it. And the reason he didn't make it is he had a massive heart attack while he was playing hockey. And to look at my father, everybody would have said he was healthy. He was the perfect body weight. He exercised every day, played some form of sport just about every day. Some days he played 2 sports a day. He was of good weight. He was of good mind. But in the middle of playing a hockey game at halftime or between quarters, he was skating off the ice rink and died of a massive heart attack. Blood pressure normal, cholesterol normal. Why did this man die? And at the time, I wasn't doing functional medicine. I was practicing chiropractic at that time, but it frustrated me because my dad would call me and ask me, "What should I be doing for my health? What should I be doing for my health?" And so I did what every other good kid would do, what every other person would do. I got on Google and found out that you should be taking fish oils, you should be taking probiotics, you should be taking vitamin D, you should be taking a multivitamin, and by the way, you should go to your chiropractor. And he did everything I asked him to do. But I didn't know to have him check for inflammation. And that's one of the things that we found that causes heart disease. Let me explain. Turns out inflammation, research has shown that only about 50% of the people that have a heart attack, so listen to this, guys, 50% of the people that die of a heart attack have normal LDL levels, normal cholesterol. So if we're trying to artificially lower cholesterol to normal ranges to give us a peace of mind, I don't think this gives me any peace of mind because the likelihood of dying of a heart attack is still the same. Guys, this is coming out of Harvard Health. But what they did find was that elevated risk of C-reactive protein, which we're going to explain this more later. I promise we're going to explain what C-reactive protein is. But people that had elevated levels of this particular protein means that they have more inflammation. The more inflammation that people have, they're at a 3 times greater risk for a heart attack if their C-reactive protein is elevated. So my question to you then is why, if we know how important, if science has told us how important C-reactive protein is to heart disease, why haven't you heard about it on commercials yet? Go ahead, type in some things here. Yep. Yeah, I'll tell you why. There's no drug to treat it. Because there's no drug to treat inflammation, that's why you haven't heard of it. There are things that you can do to lower inflammation, but the drugs and the side effects just aren't worth taking it for long term, so the doctors don't use it, but they are aware of inflammation. There's several doctors out there that are very aware of inflammation, aware of what it can do to people, but the problem with lowering inflammation is that it takes a holistic, natural approach in doing it, to keep it low and to make it low. And so we've done some research here in our clinic, and out of 51 patients, we saw a reduction of their inflammation levels from 3.19 down to 1.7. That's almost a 50% reduction in their inflammation levels. And what research has taught us is that anything over 3 is a severe risk factor. So yeah, we're saving lives. We're actually saving lives a little differently than putting the little, the compression chest therapies or having a surgery or getting a bypass surgery, but by lowering people's inflammation levels naturally and safely, we're helping reduce heart attacks potentially. This is what inflammation does. So if you have an artery and you have cholesterol that's going through that artery, it's not going to get clogged in an artery that's big and wide and open. But what's going to happen is if that artery gets damaged, it starts to swell. And as that artery swells, it gets constricted. Once it gets constricted, now the cholesterol gets stuck. And so cholesterol's at the scene of the crime. But we've learned now, like I've said, we've seen people with cholesterol levels of 500 and have no plaquing in their arteries. But then we've seen somebody with a cholesterol of 120 and their arteries are completely clogged. So it's not the cholesterol, guys. It's the inflammation in the arteries that allows the cholesterol to get stuck in the artery walls that leads to the heart disease and heart attacks. That's what it says right here, guys. Time Life Magazine. I've been lecturing on this now. This article came out in 2004, but look at what the headline says here. The secret killer, inflammation, is linked to heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Inflammation is actually when you have a healthy cell, everything in your body is made of these cells. These cells make up tissues. These tissues make up organs. These organ systems make up organisms. So you are an accumulation of cells. These cells over time are exposed to free radicals, toxins, and waste. That waste damages and punches the cells until they become damaged. When they have an inflamed cell, the body releases a substance to clear that cell out. So it's going to be basically an immune response in conjunction with your liver, because your liver releases a substance called C-reactive protein. That C-reactive protein from the liver goes out, gets the cell with the help of the immune system and carries it and gets it out of the body. If these cells accumulate over time, they call that cancer. So cancer has two causes. Yes, hormones are a part of it, but hormones cause damage to the cells. So really the causes of cancer are process of poor detoxification, poor elimination, and immune function, poor immune function. We've got to get those cells out. So we know that those are the two main culprits to cancer. So that cell has to be carried out of the body. So I want you to think about, what are the ramifications if I have a lot of inflamed cells? What does that mean for me? Well, inflammation can lead to fatigue, and I'll show you some of that research in a minute. Anxiety, depression, memory issues. It can lead to sleep troubles. It can lead to PMS and menstrual issues, headaches and migraines. It can lead to chronic malaise, which is a medical term for quite simply put, I don't feel well. It can lead to slow metabolisms. It can lead to cancer and heart disease. Now listen, guys, this is not coming from holisticcollege.com. The research is coming from major established medical peer-reviewed journals that are saying if you have elevated inflammation levels, these are the conditions that are associated with this problem. But you never heard about CRP until tonight. That's a problem. Here it is right here, guys. This is in a medical journal. It was out of China. They had 209 patients that went to the hospital that were diagnosed with COVID-19. Out of those 209 patients, 16 ended up in the hospital and having severe reactions after getting COVID. And the one thing that they found out, the one determining factor, they looked at age, they looked at sex, they looked at weight, they looked at blood pressure, they looked at your blood sugars, they looked at all these factors. And the number one thing they associated the likelihood of these people returning to the hospital after they got the diagnosis, so it might be a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, was the fact that their CRP levels were elevated. The people that did not get, the levels were 43. So if you're 43 or above, that was the average person, you ended up hospitalized. If your average inflammation, the people that did not end up in the hospital, their average inflammation was only 12. That's how important this is to us. Fatigue and chronic inflammation. Increased CRP levels are associated with pain and fatigue. So if you have pain, achiness, and then also if you're tired, lethargic, it's because your body's immune system is trying to get rid of this debris and waste. It's trying to clear all this stuff out. And that in itself is exhausting. Just like if you had a virus or if you had a bacterial infection, when you first get those infections, you don't feel well. You get achy, you get lethargic, you just don't feel well. And you can still go out and exercise, you can still go out and do things, but man, no matter what, you're still going to feel like crap because you have this inflammation, you have this infection, you have this thing going on inside your body. So CRP was associated with fatigue. And level elevated of CRP above 3 was significantly positively associated with premenstrual syndrome, PMS, abdominal pain, back pains, appetite cravings, weight gain, bloating, breast pain. So all the problems with menstrual issues have been associated with inflammation with CRP, elevated CRP. CRP was also associated with higher levels of cancer. They looked at 88,000 Koreans, Southern Koreans. They went and they got tested. They got their CRP levels checked. And they did a 5-year study of these people. Within 5 years, if your inflammation levels are above 3, you're 149% more likely to develop cancer. Think about that. So I think I've already mentioned that the liver releases the substance called CRP. So that's one of the things that the liver does to help to clear out dead waste. But the liver is also going to be responsible for taking the waste that's inside of our bodies and clearing that waste out. And right now, obviously, like I said before at the start of the seminar, this world's changed. In the last 200 years, we have vaccines, we've got chemicals, we've got pollutants, we've got frankenfood, we've got all these things that we're exposed to that our DNA, our genetics have never seen. I want you to think about a medication. Let's talk about blood pressure medication or a statin medication. So you were taking a cholesterol lowering medication. You put that in your body doesn't even recognize what it is. It's never seen it. So that in itself can cause your immune system to think that there's something wrong going on inside it, because part of your detoxification system is your immune system. So your immune system recognizes that this toxin, this chemical is foreign to me. It's not supposed to be in me. And so therefore I need to have a reaction. And so there is a condition called drug-induced autoimmunity, that while taking drugs, it triggered autoimmune disease. This is why when some people get like a vaccine, they can end up getting Guillain-Barré syndrome because the vaccine triggered the immune system to fire. And so think about all those different triggers that are in our environment now that are going into our bodies, are affecting us. And I want you to think about that conversation with your medical doctor or your primary care doctor, like, hey, do you think I could do a detox? Maybe that could help me feel better. Once again, they're going to look at you like, I don't know. You can try it if it helps, I guess, but you don't want to waste your money. So obviously but we know that these chemicals and toxins can affect us. Look at the toxic burden since 1950. This is the amount of pesticides they spray per acre in our environment now. If you look at 1950 versus now, where's all those toxins going? Well, we eat it off the food, and then it also goes into the water supply and gets into our drinking water, and then it also gets in the animals that we're eating because they're drinking the water. And so these toxins are building up, they're accumulating in our bodies, and they're definitely, absolutely 100% making us sick. The average woman uses 168 chemicals per day in her self-care regimen. And so sometimes when we see somebody having hormonal issues, we've got to look at, what are you putting on your skin? What are you putting on your hair? Are those chemicals and toxins going into your body and causing disturbances in your hormonal system? Some chemicals have been outlawed in European countries because they know that they're endocrine disruptors. Some of those chemicals, oh goodness, why are we going backwards? When these chemicals accumulate, some of the things that we're going to see in your brain is poor concentration. You're going to have ADHD type of symptoms. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to have stammering and stuttering. We know that brain toxicity can lead to Alzheimer's and dementia. Guys, once again, please understand every one of these things that we're talking about on here, science has shown us that there's a correlation between toxins and chemicals and poor detoxification and these symptoms. So these are things that are well known and well studied and researched. We know that these chemicals and these toxins can create these types of things. We know that it can create issues with headaches and migraines. And you guys have seen that. I don't have to prove that to you. If you drink too much alcohol, the next day you have a headache. Well, if you have too much toxicity in your body all the time, you're going to have headaches. You're going to have migraines. You're going to have systemic pain if it's in your body, where you have muscles and joint achiness. You're going to have impaired hormonal function. You're going to have irritable bowel syndrome. They found that toxins can get into your colon and can irritate the actual colon. We found that toxins can also create allergies. It can also lead to acne and liver spots. Skin tags have been associated with chemicals and toxins accumulation. Have you ever seen research now that when you're exposed to a certain amount of chemicals that it can actually elevate your cholesterol levels? And then we also know that toxins can lead to elevated C-reactive protein. And another marker that we look for inflammation is called homocysteine. So those are some signs that you could have bodily toxicity. And this will be a good segue into this next patient testimonial. As you can see here, this is Chris. Chris was at the time told that she was diabetic a year before we met her. And for that last year, she started exercising. She started eating better, and she lost 6 pounds in that entire year. But when she went back to her doctor, they said everything looked good on her blood reports. Her blood sugars had come down, her cholesterol had come down. And so they gave her an A+ on her blood testing. But yet, I'll let her tell you the story. She still didn't feel well, and I think it's best told by her.
All of my life, I've been happy. All of my life, I've had reproductive issues, problems with periods. I had trouble getting pregnant. But overall, I've always felt okay. I've always basically been healthy. Whenever I went to the doctor, they said, you need to move more, eat less, you need to worry about your weight, you're getting older, that sort of thing. But I never really had any feelings of being bad, feeling sick. Issues that I now know about, trouble with my memory, getting warm, not being able to control my body temperature, things like that I thought were normal because I was getting older. I'm over 50, and I thought that was just what happened when you got older. And so I did try to eat less. I tried to move more. And over the last 7 to 10 years, I've probably averaged 5 to 10 pounds of gained weight each year. And I was just at the point where I thought, my God, I can't get any bigger. And I don't know what to do because everything I'm trying isn't working. I'd never had a normal period since I started at age 12. Had very heavy periods, had close to the point of maybe even hemorrhaging and worrying that way. Had backaches, had all sorts of issues, very irregular. When I got to the age where I wanted to start having children, I was so irregular, they put me on pills to try to regulate it. And when I decided to really tried to get pregnant, had to go through all the infertility issues. They told me my estrogen was extremely high, so they loaded me up with progesterone to try to get me pregnant, which ultimately did happen. But after that, I just continued to have strange or difficult periods until I started this program. Since starting the program, I learned that I have Hashimoto's, which explains a lot of things in my life. I've always had cravings for bread, for beer. I've learned that those are things that my body can't handle. I've also had some digestion issues, and where my stomach was making terribly growling noises all day, and it was very embarrassing, and I had no idea why. But since I've started the program, I no longer have any stomach discomforts. I'm losing weight. I'm feeling better. My skin's better. People are asking me what I'm doing. I've had problems in the past with memory, and that's getting much sharper now. I noticed that I can recall a lot of things. I don't have to rely on all of my systems like I used to. I'm not hot anymore. My periods are normal. I don't have any symptoms when my periods are coming, so now I have to keep track so I know when they're going to be here. And it's pretty wonderful. I just wish I had known about this many years ago instead of at 52.
What a story, huh? Interestingly enough, this is Chris's picture a few months later after that video. And as you can tell, she's much thinner in this picture than she was even then. Chris ended up losing 80 pounds. She went from 204 down to 124. But what's interesting is, once again, if we look at it, you know, she was doing what you were supposed to do. She was exercising an hour a day, 6 days a week. Before she came to our clinic, she was eating better, but she still had all those other problems. Digestive problems, hormonal problems, hot flashes, all these problems, but they're all resolved and corrected when she started addressing the things that we're talking about today. So another thing that we found, and this is what we found in many of our patients, is that they have a condition called leaky gut. What that means is that you have food and bacteria that are supposed to be out here in the top layer of your intestines. If you see there where it says microorganism and gluten, that's where the fecal matter and the bacteria and the food's supposed to stay. But if there's a tear over here on the right side of the image, you'll see that where it says leaking and inflamed, that tear allows that food and the bacteria to pour out of the gut into the blood. So once that bacteria, food, parasites, worm, whatever that stuff is that's in your colon that leaks out of your colon into your blood, it's going to be in your blood, and now that's going to cause an immune reaction. That's going to cause your body to say, hey, there's something in here that's not supposed to be here. So therefore, it is a toxin. It is that it was a bacteria, but now that's in the blood, it's a toxin. It's an enemy. So the immune system connected with the liver and the detoxification system starts trying to work on that. And when that happens, it starts to create a whole cascade of events. Some of the things that can happen when you have leaky gut, it can lead to that systemic inflammation where the whole body starts to ache. It can lead to that blood-brain barrier breach where now the blood, these toxins that were in your gut are now being pumped into your brain. It can lead to additional food sensitivities or food intolerances. It can lead to autoimmunity, and then we'll talk about that research. And it can lead to more nutrient malabsorption because of the damage in your intestines. You're not going to be able to absorb the vitamins and minerals like you're supposed to because the intestines are too inflamed to actually absorb. So a lot of times when we see nutritional deficiencies, it's not necessarily because somebody's not eating the right foods, the right amounts of foods. It's because they're not absorbing the vitamins and minerals that they're eating. I've seen that in couples before that have the same diet, that live in the same household, and they've been living together for 20, 30 years, taking the same exact supplements. But one, I take their lab report and their testing looks like they don't have any nutrients almost, and the other one's completely perfectly normal. Well, the difference isn't the food, it's the absorption. So now that the body sees these particles and these bugs and this bacteria and this fecal matter as enemies, the immune system starts to fire. When the immune system starts to fire and it overfires, it can create a situation where the immune system starts getting confused and starts attacking its own body. That's called autoimmunity. And so they're discussing now that intestinal permeability in autoimmune disease is connected to this leaky gut. That's what it says right here. This is the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences. What they found is that there's growing evidence that increased intestinal permeability plays a role in pathogenic autoimmune disease. So imagine, once again, instead of going to a rheumatologist to talk about, you know, what drugs they want to put you on to suppress your immune system, what if you guys talked about intestinal permeability? They laugh at you, once again, because they don't have the right tools or the toolkits. They haven't been trained in how to do this type of care. Even though the research, this is a medical journal. It takes 20 to 30 years for things to change and adapt. But my question, my fear is that the medical big pharma's got their hooks into this thing too much. They're not going to let go of this, because you know how much some of these drugs cost? Like Humira is like $5,000 a month. $5,000 a month is what they're billing for that stuff. And think how many people are taking these medications, because that's what we're finding now, is that there's over 100 different types of autoimmune diseases. And please understand, any tissue in your body can be affected by your immune system. I've even seen a case where a patient couldn't sleep. They had insufferable insomnia. They just could not sleep. It turned out they had an autoimmune disease attacking a part of their brain that helps release neurotransmitters to calm it down. And so that was a situation where the immune system, it can attack any tissue, any organ, any gland in your body. And they're finding now that it can lead to heart disease, that they're saying now that some heart disease is actually autoimmune driven. They have infertility issues, obviously several gut issues. You guys have heard of those: ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome is not an autoimmune disease, but ulcerative colitis is. But a lot of times people will get labeled as irritable bowel syndrome because they haven't shown up with the antibodies yet attacking their colon. So they can't be diagnosed with it, but they could be pre-autoimmune. Turns out that 12 to 20% of you watching this right now have autoimmune disease. And I can tell you this, in our clinic, when we do testing, about 60% of the patients, turns out they have some form of antibodies attacking their own body. They have some form of markers for autoimmune disease. 60% is what we're seeing in our clinic. Maybe that's because we get people that have more thyroid issues. The number one cause for thyroid disease is an autoimmune disease. So I think that would be one reason. But the other reason is that these people are suffering. Their bodies are always fighting, always working, and they don't feel well. And they've been basically laid aside by the medical system that says, hey, you're not broken enough for us to do anything to help you feel better. So they end up here. I want you to understand that autoimmune disease is actually more common than heart disease and cancer. If you combine the two groups, there's more people with autoimmune disease than if you combine heart disease and cancer. It's the number one cause of death for young and middle-aged women. And many people are still undiagnosed and are unaware of the fact that they have it. And that's what we find in our clinic, like I just said. This is a food sensitivity test. This patient's birthday was 1954, as you can see. This was on 5/5/2013. They dealt with eczema, psoriasis, and asthma. They actually, some of their symptoms had gotten so bad that they started using prednisone, which I told you earlier, some of the drugs that can do to lower inflammation is actually prednisone. It's actually a hormone that they give people to help lower inflammation levels, but it has a tremendous amount of side effects. One of those is being weight gain. But she took those hormones and steroids to help hopefully improve her autoimmune disease because her skin was getting really bad with the rosacea, and she was starting to have a lot of pain associated with her autoimmune diseases. But it turns out when we looked at her food sensitivity testing, I want you to notice all these foods that are positive. Well, we use this test not only to find out what food somebody should or shouldn't be eating, because honestly, I don't believe that lettuce or asparagus are driving this patient's problems. But what I do believe is that these foods were leaking out of her gut into her blood, and this is her immune system response to those foods, because this is her blood work 4 months later after we did a repair program where we repaired her gut, got rid of some of the infections, and gave her nutrients to help heal, seal the gut. This is her testing 4 months later. As you can tell, her immune system's acting less. It has less activity. So what does that mean for her? It means that she's gonna have more energy because her immune system's not exhausted. It means that she's not gonna have as much inflammation on her skin because her intestines are calmed down or less inflamed. You're gonna see that her body's gonna function better because it has less stress. So remember that scale we talked about earlier where the disease, you have the stressors, and then over time those stressors cause disease. She's gonna have less disease, less illness, and she might even live to be longer and older because she doesn't have so much stress accumulating in her body. Asthma causes and triggers. They found that food sensitivities and food allergies can drive asthma. They've even associated asthma now with autoimmune disease in some cases. They say if you have asthma, you have a higher likelihood of developing autoimmune disease. This is a patient's stool test that we did. I want you to look at all this overgrowth of bacteria. These are several markers. These particular markers down here, this dysbiosis, this overgrowth, has been associated, and the research has shown us that they can trigger autoimmune disease. Here's a report out of the World Journal of Gastroenterology and Pathophysiology, and they found that a major physiological effect of zinc deficiency will be that it can induce leakiness in the tight junctions and the sills of your gut. So they're talking about leaky gut in a medical journal. Once again, I challenge you to go to your gastroenterologist and say, hey, I think I might have leaky gut. What do you think we should do? It's just not going to happen yet. Hopefully, one day that'll change. But as of right now, the toolkits they have, what do they have? They have Prilosec, they have Tums, they've got endoscopies, they got colonoscopies, they've got surgeries for polyps, but they really don't have any way to help people's guts be healthy because all the medications they prescribe actually make the guts more unhealthy. Here's a test. This is another part of that stool test that we do. This is called beta-glucuronidase. This marker specifically helps regulate hormones. We're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, your gut actually affects your hormones. This last one, this add-on test down here, it says zonulin. Zonulin is a test for leaky gut. And that's what science is telling us now, that if we measure zonulin levels, it can tell you if somebody has leaky gut, or aka the medical term increased intestinal permeability. Here's a medical journal, Journal of National Cancer Institute. They said that conjugated estrogens excreted in the bile can be deconjugated by bacterial species in the gut. called beta-glucuronidase. Remember that stool test I showed you a minute ago? I said that beta-glucuronidase has to do with enzymes that regulate your hormones. That's what this study is telling us. It says that when this enzyme is high, it increases the activity. It leads to estrogen being reabsorbed into the body and increases the circulation of estrogen levels. Remember Chris's story talking about her estrogen levels are high and her progesterone is low. And that can affect your breast tissues, which then can lead to stimulate cell growth and proliferation. What does stimulate cellular growth and proliferation mean? It means cancer. So over time, if we have an enzyme that's over-functioning in our gut, it can lead to cancer. This might be the first time you guys are hearing this, that cancer can be caused from a problem in your gut. Like I was telling you, everything's connected, everything matters, everything affects everything. This is in the Gynecological Endocrinology Medical Journal again. They found that metabolic endotoxemia, read the headline, it's a potential link between ovarian inflammation and progesterone production. What they found is that when toxins, bacteria, leaks from your gut, so when the bacteria gets out of your gut, it goes in your body, it's considered a toxin. I told you that earlier, that once it gets into the body, into the circulation, into the blood, it's going to interfere with progesterone production. What does that mean? It means you're going to have low progesterone. So let's go back to Chris. She was told she had too much estrogen and she had too little progesterone. What did they do for her? They put her on progesterone. And that's the number one prescribed hormone for women, is a progesterone pill called birth control. But think about Chris's symptoms. She had digestive issues, but she was told that those are normal. That's just kind of with life. So here's some Tums, some antacid, some Prilosec. Don't worry about it. It's normal to have these problems. But that was her body trying to tell her something wasn't working right. Here it is right here, guys. They're finding now that the microbiome in the gut, the bacteria in the gut, plays a role how well somebody's going to respond to chemotherapy. So now what they're doing is they're harvesting people's bacteria before they start immunotherapy and then giving them their own bacteria back later, because they're finding it's helping them live and not die from cancer. So why are we worried about the microbiome once we get cancer? Shouldn't we worry about it before? Here it is right here, diabetes care. This is the American Diabetes Association's website. They said that elevated levels of LPS, lipopolysaccharide, shows us that that's when we have a translocation of gut bacteria as a potential trigger for obesity and diabetes. They're saying that these toxins, when they leak out of your gut, can interfere with your body's ability to use sugars and can lead to weight gain and diabetes. Let's go further into this. Diabetes and obesity are two metabolic diseases characterized by insulin resistance. We all have heard that. Oh, we've got diabetes, it's insulin resistance, and low-grade inflammation. When metabolic endotoxemia, so when your body's metabolism, when your body's physiology experiences endotoxins, when toxins and chemicals are inside of your body, that when you do that to a mouse, and what they did is they injected these mice with that toxin, that they found that after 4 weeks, that these mice had elevated blood sugars, the glycemia, they had elevated insulin levels, because insulin's a growth hormone that makes you gain weight, that the rats actually gained weight, and that they had liver and adipose weight gain as well. They got fatty liver. And this was the exact same effect as if you put the rat on a bad diet. So basically you had a rat that ate a good diet and you had a rat that ate a bad diet. But if you gave the rat that had the good diet a toxin, that's all they did. They injected with that toxin. It caused both rats to be overweight and unhealthy, like they were eating unhealthy foods. So that leads us to think about, well, how much is this environment? How much of these toxins and chemicals affecting our metabolisms, affecting our diabetes, our heart disease rates, as well as the cancer? So this is a picture's worth 1,000 words. These are the two rats. This is one rat. These two rats, what's great about this part of this study too, is these rats actually ate the same exact diet. So not a high-fat diet. This one was with a good normal diet. They both had the same diet. I'm sorry, good normal diets. They both healthy diets, same amount of activity level, but the only difference they did was they injected that one rat on the left with that bacterial endotoxin that leaks from the gut into the blood. So once again, a gut health is going to make a world of difference in some people's health. So as a reminder, guys, we're wrapping up here. What do functional medicine doctors look for? And that's the biggest thing that I can hopefully impress upon you, is that you have to look deeper than standard medical testing. We've got to look at what are the foods that you're eating. We've got to look at how many nutritional deficiencies you have, and we can't say it's okay. We have to correct them. We have to find out if you've been exposed to toxins, what kind of medications you're taking, how they might be interacting with you. We have to look at what kind of foods you're eating, if they're covered in pesticides and herbicides. We've got to look at your gut. We got to look at your immune system. We got to look for parasites, worms, yeast, overgrowth, candida, leaky gut, autoimmune disease. We got to look for all these things because these things are affecting you. In some way, these things are going to affect you. We got to look at inflammation, and we got to look for hormonal imbalances. That's what we do. That's what we look for. Now, some of you are probably asking by now, and that, what do I have to do to become a patient? Well, here's the good news, is that a consultation in our office, it's a 30-minute appointment. It's a $250 value. A consultation in our office for the last 9 years has been free. You can come in and talk to us for absolutely no cost, no charge. You sit down with us. We're going to let you know if we really believe we can help you. We're going to let you know if we think that you're a good candidate for care. Then at that point, we're going to recommend lab testing. Now, these appointments, we prefer to do them in person, but we do take care of people all over the state of Michigan, and actually for that case, all over the state, all over the country. So if you're watching this and you're in Connecticut or in Colorado, we can still do these appointments for you. We'll let you know if we can help you. We'll tell you what lab testing we recommend, and we'll tell you the cost of those tests. Based on the testing that we order, it can take anywhere between 1 week to 5 weeks to get those test results back. We'll then sit down and we'll do what we call a second visit, which is a report of findings. At the report of findings, I'll tell you what we found with your testing and how it's affecting your particular issues and your conditions. We'll let you know the frequency of your care, the length of your care. We're going to establish what your goals are to make sure that we're very clear in helping you obtain those. And then we'll let you know the expected cost of care. And I know the next question everybody's going to ask me is, how much is it? And I can tell you that, and they also ask, can I use my insurance? And in our current clinic, in our situation, we are not pretending to be a medical clinic. We're not pretending to provide medical care. What we're doing here is dietary changes and supplements, lifestyle and wellness coaching, and those just aren't covered services by insurance. You can read it right here. Medicare, this is Medicare guidelines. This is what they say in their guidelines. And a lot of people have adopted what Medicare said. This is their guidelines. So basically they copy and paste and make their own manuals with what Medicare says. But Medicare said that care that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and prolong and enhance the quality of life is not considered medically necessary. And here you thought this whole time that medical insurance was trying to make you and help you be healthier. It's not. It's simply a way to care for ways to manage disease and illness with medications and surgeries. That's what medical care is for. So we don't participate, we don't use it, but we do have affordable payment plans that will work with patients. We have a company called Care Credit that can finance care for people to make it more affordable. But the first step is just to talk to find out if we can help you, and we'll let you know then at that time kind of what you can expect and its cost, and we can go over different payment ranges, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to find a payment program that's going to work for you, okay? Now, out of 51 randomly selected patients, we went through and did our research. We found that 69% of them had an improvement in their, sorry, I got this little box in my way. You guys can't see it. I don't know what that says. Here it goes. 69% improvement in their memory and focus. So less brain fog. Saw a 67% in energy. They saw a 60% improvement in their sleep quality. They saw a 46% reduction in inflammation, which I showed you. Clinically, we saw that inflammation go down from 3.17 down to 1.19. We saw a 76% improvement in digestive health. We saw a 67% improvement in anxiety and depression. And as I put this slide together, I couldn't help but to think that these are just stats. These are just data, and this doesn't really mean anything to you guys, but I think what this means to me is the lives that it changes. Because I know how this has given back so many people their lives back. I've seen the mom who feels better about herself now as a mother because she has more energy to be with her kids, more energy to do the things that's necessary to manage a home and to go to work. That she's not so exhausted that she's able to play with her kids again. that she's able to actually enjoy them again. I've seen the way that this can make marriages and make people be reconnected to their spouses because they're not using all their energy and all their time suffering and dealing with their pain and their symptoms. I've seen this help people get back to work. Just recently, one of the patients that we just started care with back in November, who was on disability, medical disability, is now back to work and able to provide for her family, her 2 daughters, and now she's a single mother, and she's the only one that's responsible. But now, because we've been able to help her, she's able to get back to work. So I also know that this allows people to get back to be more confident, to feeling like themselves again, and to just get over the whole cycle of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, yeah, we're kind of lucky here at our clinic to get to do the work that we do and to help people the way that we help them, because I can tell you it is absolutely life-changing. And for those of you that have decided that you want to be a patient, I invite you to come to our clinic and to sit down with us and talk to us and find out if you're a good candidate, if we think we can really help you. I can tell you that the key to success is to take action.